have just stepped into the Midlife Revolution, your space to ignite possibility, redefine purpose, and embrace the power that comes with age. Co-hosted by yours truly, Coach Wayne.
And I'm Coach Stacy M. Lewis. And we're two seasoned coaches focused on the midlife community of color. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. In a world that sometimes forgets the power and the wisdom that comes with age, we're here to ignite a revolution and rewrite the narrative of this incredible journey.
So, whether you're navigating career shifts, rediscovering passions, or challenging the status quo, this is your space. So buckle up. Let's dive into the Midlife Revolution. Hey, good morning. We're in the 5th day of March. Can you believe it? The 5th day of March. The year is moving on. So we're into the first quarter, the third month, and welcome to Midlife Revolution. I am Coach Wayne, and I'm here to work with you today in changing the mindset around what it means to enter midlife. I work with men exclusively, Black men, around leveling up in their careers and their personal life during midlife. And today, I have the lovely co-host, Coach Stacy, with me. Stacy.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are viewing from. Thank you so much for joining us on the Midlife Revolution. We are so excited to be here and to share and to learn and to grow. And as Wayne was so kind enough to share, I'm Stacy M. Lewis. I'm a nonprofit executive as well as a midlife women's coach. I believe that it is a beautiful time of life, being in midlife and being able to use our resilience, our learnings, our falls, our bounce backs to not only shine our own light, but to really help others shine theirs. So I'm so excited to be here, Wayne.
Yeah, Stacy, today we want to enter into the whole idea around leveraging relationships. After all, if we have been around for longer than our younger counterparts, we should have a little bit of an edge in terms of the relationships that we have made. And, as we get to midlife, it is actually a plus. And we wanted to talk today to our listening audience and viewing audience about leveraging relationships.
Yeah, I think it's such a great topic because we've learned so much, right? And I'm sure that we've all made so many mistakes. And when I think about leveraging relationships, even when you raise the topic, the first thing that came to mind is really the priority of relationships. And so for me, priority number one is my relationship with God, my creator. How am I using and engaging in that relationship in a way that helps me move forward and helps me live the life that I was created to live? The second priority then for me, when I think relationship, is of course the relationship with myself. And I think, I don't know about you, Wayne, but for me, in this season of life, my relationship with myself is just so much more rich than I would have ever imagined. My relationship with my authenticity, my relationship with my hair, my relationship with my voice and who I am and the gifts that I have and what I don't know. And that part of just embracing all of me has just been so rich. And then of course, The third part is our relationship with others, and I know you really have some rich nuggets to share with our listening audience today. And so before we dive in, I want to welcome our folks in the listening lounge, whether you are listening live at the Midlife Revolution or whether you are catching the replay. Thank you for joining us. You are welcome here, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. Welcome. Please know, show us some grace. You know, we love technology. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. But we will do our best to really pay attention and engage with our listening audience. And if we don't answer your comments during our live, we will certainly catch up with you in the chat. So thank you for joining us. And Wayne, I'm gonna toss it back to you.
Hey, Stacy, thank you so much for sharing that piece about self-love and self-care. A lot of times we're so busy, being busy, that we get caught up in the busyness of running around and collecting items and shiny objects that we break down. And, you know, in the dimension that I work with, Black men, oftentimes a lot of brothers get so successful earning the cheddar, but they don't
Better.
enjoy it. The family
Mm,
that they have worked so long and hard to make happy and survive and provide for can't have them to share in it because they don't last because of the lack of self-love and self-care, that relationship that you spoke about. And, you know, we want to talk about social capital. When we talk about capital and social capital, what we're really talking about is the folk around us, the network that we have,
mm,
those folk that we have that we can utilize in terms of developing our capital, as it were, the things that we use to plug in our personal lives and our professional lives to move forward and to have connectivity. Listen, despite what people are saying about AI and technology, one thing that is key that we cannot forget to do is stay connected. The human spirit needs connection, right?
mm,
We're social creatures. And today, Stacy, I wanted to share with our audience the key dimensions or four key dimensions that we ought to use when we start doing an evaluation of the sort of social capital that we have. Because a lot of times they say it's not who you know, it's who knows you. But I'm here to say it's beyond that. It's the
mm.
quality of whom or who you know and what you're about when it comes to those relationships. So, Stacy, are you ready for us to dive in with those four key dimensions to determine if you have a solid social capital or not?
I definitely am. And I think when you use the word quality, I think, you know, what we just talked about, knowing who you are, right, helps you really assess that quality, the quality of your social capital. So I think that this is going to be a great conversation. I'm ready.
Okay, so let's begin with number one. And number one is around quantity. And what do we mean by quantity? Well, sometimes whether you're on, say, LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
or another social platform, a lot of folk have people that they accept because it's kind of cool to be popular, to feel like an influencer. But when it comes to social capital, quantity is important, but there are times when you just have to say, no, I'm not interested. It goes against my value system. It goes against my brand, and you are your brand, right? And it goes against what I stand for, or it just doesn't make sense. Because part of what we want to do is help people understand how to leverage these relationships. So just having a name for the sake of the game of being popular makes no real sense. So quantity is important, but the quantity can be, as it were, checked out so that you identify the folks. It's kind of like purging your email list or purging your phone book, right? Comes a time when you just purging your closet. right? You can say you have 1,000 bits of dresses or suits, but if they don't fit anymore, it's time to purge quantity. So that's number one in terms of the social capital check-in. And I would suggest that everyone takes a look at the names of folks that they have in their network and start streamlining those that have value, support, and so forth.
So good. And I tell you that, what happens, I think, in particular in this kind of world of, social networking and all of that, that we get so focused on the number, right? But what you're saying about social capital and looking at the quantity is not looking at the quantity to watch the number go up, but it's looking at the quantity, right? And then going back to align it with the quality. And if there's no alignment, then something needs to change. And you certainly want the quality to increase, the quality of your relationships, the quality of these connections needs to increase. And so if the quantity is not lined up, then the quantity needs to change. And to your point, getting rid of some of these emails that are not serving us and some of these social contacts that have likely reached out to us, right? We want to grow our connections, but in ways that are meaningful, and they've reached out to us for maybe it's to just be a really good connection and see how they can add and glean, but maybe it's really just to kind of use us for the connections that we have. And so if there's no real value, no real quality, then bye. Sorry, did I show my age?
Great. You're absolutely on the money there, Stacy. We wanted to slip into number two, which is strength. So what do we mean by strength in terms of relationships? Well, as you can imagine, there are different levels of intensity in terms of the relationship and the bonding that you have. I mean, I have friends that I connect maybe 3 times a year, but the bond and the relationship and the support and the trust is so tight that I could close my eyes and know that these brothers are there for me. So we got to look at strength, because there's some folk who, like you said, they function on the WIIFM's frequency. What's in it for me, right? And so it's all about a one-way street. There's no real mutual connection benefit. And
right.
when I do executive coaching work, one of the things that I help people to recognize is you develop your relationships through your networks, and you look at strength points. The folk who can open doors or help you to leverage yourself in, meaning folks who can support you through both mentoring and folks who can kind of chaperone you through, right? On some levels. Those are strength relationships. And as midlifers, we have been building and stacking over the years and decades, but we got to pay attention to the strength relationships, because those are the ones we want to asterisk or star or have in our quick dial or favorites so we can connect with. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying we're using people. I'm saying that we're leveraging, right? And it's always good to be able to call on someone and have a sponsor if we're trying to move into an opportunity and someone is willing to endorse us. Those are the strength relationships that we're looking for.
I love it. And I think, one of the beauties about the strength in a relationship is that it is resilient. And so those relationships that we look to utilize, and then we utilize them and they crack or they break, clearly those are not the ones that we can learn to lean on or rely on. And it is those connections that we grow over time that help us, I think, to to build trust. And it is the strength in a relationship that helps us build trust, that relationship can indeed take what we are dishing out or giving out, and that we can take what that other person needs in our relationship and still maintain a strong connection. So I love it. I'm loving this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I
And
love it.
let's not forget that though we're talking about professional relationships, we are also we need to mention that these are also applicable and true to our personal lives, right? As
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so, yeah,
So good. I mean, I belong to a couple of communities, and one is the Impeccable Impact community. And we were meeting last night, and we were talking about, that sometimes the strength of the relationships in our families are not as strong as some of the relationships that exist in the sisterhood, in the larger sisterhood, right? So it almost expands the definition of family and the need for those relationships to be strong. And when they're not strong in the family, I know at least for women, I feel like we really thrive in community. And so when they're not strong in the family, we seek um, relationships that are strong outside of the family where we can build that community.
yeah, I want to piggyback on that because you're talking about seeking strength outside. And so, number three, in terms of leveraging relationships, as a takeaway today, is intensity. How do we identify our relationships based on intensity? Well, how much time do you put into
Mm,
it? Not just how wide you are in terms of your reach, but how deep you are in terms of your reach. How much time do you spend? And that's true too in terms of what we call traditionally work-life balance. I like to call it work-life integration, which is
mm,
how much time do you plug in to being at home, taking care of the things that matter, the people who matter, right? And when we look at the relationships that we have in our social media network, intensity is important because you can be a giver or a taker, or you can have mutual benefits where you give and take. So you add value to your relationship, but it doesn't come automatically, Stacy. You got to nurture it. You got to spend the time and you got to be intentional. So, the recommendation is to pick up the phone every now and again and say to someone, listen, I see you got promoted, and I have happened to know someone in that industry or in that particular space.
mm.
How can I be of use to you? Build and build deeply. And that's intensity. And that's so important in terms of leveraging our relationships, Stacy.
I love that because it all goes back to the quality, right? And so if that relationship has no quality, it definitely has no intensity. We can't really invest in it in a way that will yield results for either side. So I love what you're saying here, and really breaking down the idea of social capital, which just is another way of really looking at our relationships, the value of our relationships throughout our lives, in our professional world, in our familial world, in our community, the relationships, and how we can really look at them in ways that make them more meaningful for us, and have us wasting less time really on relationships that have no quality.
Yeah, yeah. There's an old saying where energy and focus goes, it flows and grows. And so it's important that we talked about being intentional, that when we're culturing, designing, nurturing, developing these relationships, because there's a strategy behind it all, that we are mindful of these areas, and that we pay attention to what we want to grow. It's kind of like pruning that rose bush that's gotten out of control. It's beautiful, right, from the outside, but it's getting out of control. And so you prune it, and in pruning it, you actually get better buds as a result of it. You don't lose the plant, you increase its strength and its quality, and perhaps sometimes even the buds, the quantity. So that's part of relationship too, right? Determining where you prune and where you focus your efforts.
Absolutely. And what I think is even more fascinating is that, that whole idea of pruning, right? Very biblical, where it's clear that some things must go, be cut off, and it's not from a place that is looking to be mean, but it is really from a place of looking to help something flourish. And so that's another view that we can bring to this intensity, where we are focused on how can our relationships flourish. And if they are not ones that can flourish, then it might be a good time to prune.
They got a young folk have a word for that, Stacy. It's called toxic relationships, right? The ones that bring a lot of drama or just have so much negative energy, so much downhill momentum. You better get out.
Yeah, and I'll just say, from one West Indian to another, I thought you were going to come out with a good old West Indian saying, but I know that they're in there. I'll just wait. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And so we have some time to take some questions later, but let me slip into number 4. And number
Sure.
4 is called density. Wow, density. What is that? We're dealing with some physics. Now, density is really the level of connectivity in the network, the people who know each other, right? Because sometimes that's important. So when you are, for example, on a platform like LinkedIn, you have your first contact, then you have your second level, and you have your third level. There are
Mm.
times when through your first or second level, you get to number 3, who is the pivotal person that you need to build a relationship with, right? So it's important to, if, for example, your alma mater, you may have graduated from a certain school, and recognizing that there are other people that are of the same school, you can reach out and connect. So density is important to identify the folk who are within the network of your network that know each other, right? I have had the opportunity and pleasure to be introduced to people halfway across the world that I would have never known unless someone in my network had the connectivity, and it made it easy. That's how I found my VA in Nigeria, right? Through someone that was local that had worked with him and given me an opportunity. I had no plugs in Nigeria, but that is important to us. The idea that we scout around and identify who knows who and so forth. There's this, might talk about West Indian, your mother would say, show me your company and I show you who you are, right? So it's so important that we identify who we have and for the same token, if we see that the folk that we thought we had befriended have in their network a lot of toxicity, then that's important to recognize too. So density is around looking at that interconnectivity in your network.
That is so good because, I think about for those of you that don't know, and welcome to those that are new to the Midlife Revolution. We're excited to have our community growing. Wayne and I met on LinkedIn, and it is um, that ability to look at folks who are connected to folks that we know. At what degree are they connected? And where do we begin to see alignment, right? You don't really know someone from their LinkedIn profile or anything like that, but where do we begin to see alignment? And it is then really looking even at our existing relationships, because I would imagine, right, that as we build these relationships on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, it really is about not only that individual, but who they know, and really looking from almost a macro view and saying, does that look like a connection, right? Because you're then going to be connected to these other people that is going to be of value to me. And it doesn't mean of monetary value, but really of value. Is it going to enrich my life? Is it going to add meaning? Is it going to be a way I can contribute? And so I think looking at the numbers and the layers is really important.
Love it. Love it. Stacy, as we are coming to the bottom of the hour, you want us to holler at some of the folks who were kind enough to take some time to join us this morning and open up for any questions or comments?
Absolutely. We certainly want to shout out this beautiful woman here who talked about birds of a feather, right? Birds of a feather flock together. We know those relationships. Yes, that point you made too about show me your company, right? I immediately heard my mother.
That beautiful woman is my other half, my better half. That's the wife, Audrey.
I call her the bride. So, Paul, welcome. You are newer to our Midlife Revolution community, and we're so excited to have you here. We're excited to have those of you that are on YouTube and on Facebook. Wayne and I really look to be not only respectful of your time, but honoring of your time. And so certainly if you have any questions, any comments, we want to receive them, as well as we want to be mindful that we've been here for almost a half an hour now. So don't hesitate to jump in if you have some comment to add. Wayne, one other thing I would like to say about relationships and going back to the looking at ourselves in ways that are insightful and looking for more insight, right? I know that many of us that are believers often ask God to show me, who I am in this relationship. Show me what I either need to do, how I need to show up, how I need to draw back in these relationships. And I think as we move forward into assessing our relationships, into looking at the density, into looking at the quantity, into looking at the strength and the intensity, that we want to make sure that we're showing up as authentic as we can possibly be, as honest as we can possibly be. And I will say, I don't know about you and growing up, but I think about myself, even in my 20s, where I wasn't happy with or content with who I am. I wasn't really fully showing up as who I authentically was at that time. And so that even that manifested in my relationships. And I think the gift of now being able to get older and to learn from all of that is to say that it really is showing up in these, looking at your relationship, showing up authentically and knowing that you bring value. Many of the women that I coach, are really struggling with their own worth. And so knowing that you bring value to the relationship, it's not just assessing the relationship for what it brings to you, but really looking at it from a perspective of what you bring to it.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. Stacy, we're gonna anchor on that note. Again, it's not about aging for us, it's about saging, recognizing that you bring with your age so much potential for the second half to be your, not better, but your best half. So we want to encourage folks to continue to check us out and share this if it has meant something to you and for you, and this has been a blessing. Stacy, next week we're going to come back with some more ideas to change the way that we view midlife. So until then, this is us saying. And there you have it, folks. This week's episode of the Midlife Revolution. Hey, we truly appreciate you spending this time in this space with us. Join us next week at the same time as we dive into relevant topics and present solutions to spark new thinking and empower your midlife journey.
Don't forget, if today's episode resonated with you, share your thoughts and suggest topics in the comments. And of course, remember to subscribe, share, like, and hit that notification bell. You are the Midlife Revolution. I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.